Young and Trending is brought to you by the Bahamas Adventist Book and Nutrition Center, located on Tonic Williams Darling Highway.
Hey guys, welcome to Young and Trending here on Word SBC 88.3 FM, where we always aim to be bold, be true, and be heard. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Pastor Nasa.
Welcome back to our show.
Hey, it's good to be in the building.
Yes, today our topic is this the fast God asks for? We're talking about fasting. Something that's a little, I think a topic that could be a little daunting. To talk about.
I like my food.
Let me tell you something. Growing up in my house, there were a lot of fasts, right? In terms of like fasting and praying.
Okay.
Prayer warriors. So my grandpa was always doing these like 40-day fasts.
My Lord, 40 days.
Or like, when... or when 40 days of prayer and fasting was starting, and on those Sabbaths, like, we'd be fasting on the Sabbath. I'm like, okay, I'll find somewhere else to be. Deuces. I go to my friend's house. Or something. Like, the whole concept was so just like, I don't want to do this. I love food. I love to eat. That's why I should be fasting.
Yeah. But, I mean, since we diving into it, what is fasting? Fasting is what we normally would know as you abstaining from food. You voluntarily make your mind up to say, you know what? Instead of eating normally what I would eat and at the time I would eat it, I'm going to abstain from food so that, there's a spiritual focus that I can now give towards, whether it may be a specific goal or a task that you look into accomplish. And so you may have, if you're familiar with any church, you may have been familiar with hearing the term fasting. Prayer and fasting as well. People say, we're not going to eat for this particular period of time, going to come together and pray. And, you have a lot of people who just have grumbling bellies and white mouths. But, oh boy. But
come out of that miserably.
Some has come out miserable. But there is a purpose for it. It's not about just depriving yourself.
Absolutely.
And when you look in the Bible, you could see that, fasting was done by, many individuals in the Bible. Moses fasted, and the most famous person we could probably think of who fasted was Jesus, right? Jesus went to the wilderness and he fasted and he was tempted, but he had a spiritual focus and strength that when the devil himself confronted him, he was strong enough to rebuke the devil and resist the devil. And so I think that is how we then loosely see its application to us, that when we're up against something or we're looking for something, fasting can be a means of helping us to focus and to galvanize ourselves to that goal that we have in mind.
I was telling you earlier that, I'm happy we're having this conversation because it seems to me, and this is just my personal perspective, maybe I'm just not in the right spaces, but it seems like that focus on fasting in a Christian context, prayer and fasting is not really there anymore. Like it seems like it was a much bigger thing. I feel like when I was growing up.
So. Me too.
You look at my generation, how many of us are like, oh, we're gonna go fast and pray?
Like actively suggest, hey, let's like, hey, let's go fast, Tyler. No, it's true. No, it's real talk. Right. My generation, yeah. It does.
Maybe the young people are moving in silence in this aspect. Maybe
they so silent you never hear about it. No, it's true. No,
but outside of like 40 days of prayer and fasting, like that church initiative itself,
right? The church initiative.
Like I haven't heard much sermons about fasting or like anything like that. Like
it ain't popular.
No, it's not.
It is not because I mean, who looks forward? Who willfully looks forward to not eating?
I heard someone say in a world where I really, really only getting simple pleasures.
Mercy.
They're tell me don't eat.
Mercy.
But that's really the thing there, right? Like fasting, and we're going to get into that right now, is not just about not eating.
No. It's more than that. And there are even different types of fasting. Some people, there is that total fast where you eat nothing. Some people don't eat or drink water. Then you have partial fasting where some people, they'll decide to, maybe they'll drink a fruit juice or something just to give themselves nutrients. And some people have to because they may literally physically have some condition where they have to have something else. It could you know, so some people do a partial fast. Then you have intermittent fasting that's getting quite popular today.
Yeah.
I do it all regularly.
Oh, good for you.
Where you choose to eat between a window and you cut off and you don't eat. And so throughout history, people have been using these different types of fasting. But like you just mentioned, there are some physical and spiritual benefits that come from fasting. Is more than just a religious program that's put on by the church, but it has a holistic value and application. Mentally, you come into a state where your mind feels sharper because you know your body isn't using that energy to digest food and it's breaking down other food and other storage in your body, and so it can really like lock in. People talk about coming out of prayer and fasting with this sharpened focus. You know, the things that were once cloudy seems to be so much more clearer, you know. And then physically, too, there's benefits as well. Some people have health challenges, and they talk about, you know, feeling better in their body, circulation improving, you know. I wouldn't say do it as a means of weight loss, but some people talk about, you know, feeling like they shared something that was, you know, on them. And so it has real benefits.
I think, too, outside of like physical benefits, I think too, as you stated, mentally, it also deals with discipline.
Yeah.
I think so, and endurance. So you really build your self-discipline in that way,
Which is big.
Yeah.
Which is huge. It's bigger than we give it credit for. That means that developing your self-control. Because when we think about it, a lot of times, a lot of the I don't want to say the problems we get in, or a lot of the problems we get in and some of the things that we fail to achieve comes down to self-control.
And a lack of discipline.
Right.
Right.
So it's not something to shy down or to diminish. Like, it's a big thing to really get to develop that muscle, that self-control. And then it helps for a lot of people too when they talk about like their spiritual life and wanting to feel more connected to God and wanting to improve their prayer life. It does something when you inject your spiritual life with that concentrated, as it were, period of like laser focus on God and His will and listening for His voice. It's like you flex in that spiritual muscle that helps you when you pray and you meditate. And your spiritual growth is definitely impacted. So it's something that I believe our generation should give more consideration to. Seeing how our generation has so much to complain about.
Hey, we go into a lot.
That's the point. We are going through some things that our foreparents didn't experience because they didn't have access to it.
And some things they can't even imagine, yeah.
Right. And they weren't exposed to. So yeah, I just finished on that. Like, so we should give it more consideration than we do.
So now that we've established that fasting doesn't have to be just from food, at least I think we properly established that. To that point of young people today, quote unquote, not fasting, we have taken on fasting in a different way. So when I said like I don't hear much about it, I'm talking about fasting from food, but our generation, we do a lot of fast. So we'll do the most popular one, which is social media fast. Right? You have a lot of people who do like secular music fasts, especially if they're also praying. And so the concept of fasting is one I think that most people, most Christians, and even young people understand the importance of. So, but ours more so is from the perspective of eliminating any distractions so that we can focus on really what we want, which a lot of times we do that holistically. So we want to focus on schoolwork, so we want a social media fast or whatever the case may be. But we can also apply that to our spiritual lives, wherein these things are right now our biggest distraction. So yes to the social media, yes to the music, yes to the shows and movies, whatever the case may be. And so I think most of us do fasting in that way. But I want to bring it back and say, so is there, of course there's a difference, but is there more importance almost or greater reverence and seriousness to fasting from food in and of itself?
And so that's why I'd want to interject. This is my personal conviction on the subject. I believe that the fasting from the social media and TV should be they can be supplementary elements to what we see scripture shows us, which is fasting from food. Because
okay.
The fasting from the food, we need food for sustenance, for survival. We don't need social media and TV for survival and sustenance. We could go a million years without ever watching another TV screen, without ever scrolling again.
Logically.
And literally, you will not die. I guarantee it.
Some of these people gonna fall out. I promise you.
They'll fall out, then they'll come back again, and then they'll be able to go around, right? But the food,
Right.
there's a component of we depend on food for sustenance and for survival, and depriving ourselves so that symbolically, spiritually, where we're focusing on God as our sole sustainer, our sole means of sustenance. When we feel the grumble in our belly because we are saying we need something to go on, our mind reflects on the fact that God is the one who gives life. He's the one who sustains us. Social media and TV and stuff like that, they are good to help us to focus in, but it's not the same. It's not quite the same. So I think that they can be supplementary elements. Again, I have to say this is Pastor Sims' personal, perspective on the fasting discussion. But I believe that really comes down to the food, because then it physically it demands something of us that we have to then flex that self-control muscle in a different way, in a stronger way. Right, because one of the greatest needs on the hierarchy of needs is, the needs for survival, right? So that's why I would say that, and it helps you spiritually. The Bible has some text, Matthew chapter 6. Jesus talks about, don't fast like the hypocrites do. You don't got to tell people. You don't got to have your face screw up and mash up or whatever. But go and do it in secret. Like, you could fast without telling anybody. No one needs to know. You don't need to look like you.
We shouldn't announce that 40 days of prayer and fasting.
No. See, well, that's a specific and see,
I'm joking.
no, that's fine. No, that's fine. The church does certain things corporately to help the body to move together. But then personally, there are things that you can do. And this is talking about that individual part now. You don't need to tell people, say you fasting. They looking at you and you all mash up. What happened to you? I fasted. like no, that ain't that ain't need to be a part of the package. But I wanted to jump on, because then we talking about fasting, we talking about what it looks like in the applications, right? I want us to get into a little bit now with how fasting has even helped people to overcome trauma. There have been stories and testimonies of people where they were in some dire situations, loss of a loved one, dealing with some heartbreak, loss of a job, looking for a job, and they went into a period of fasting and praying. And on the other side of it, they came out with a renewed sense of purpose and vision and strength that they didn't have before they went into it. They were weak. They were feeling a little bit worried and anxious. It has helped many individuals to, strengthen their well-being and to come out of it more powerfully equipped to face what challenges they may have in life. And so, again, I have to reinforce, I believe young people can really benefit from, young people, like you say, we going through a lot. What I could do in school, what kind of job I should do, who I could date, should I get married, where I could live, sometimes they stress over what I could wear.
Questions that need answers.
Questions that need answers.
I was watching a TikTok the other day, and this girl was saying how it's just my age, so about 24, 25, right? And she was like, it just hit her that she is now, our generation is now going to have to be that generation, and speaking as a woman, of mothers who are fasting and praying over their families. And she was like, that's a big task. You know,
is.
like you looking at your mommy and she rubbing you with olive oil and she praying over you. And she's
where that generation
fasting over her
is. No,
kids.
real talk.
And it really, like, I laughed at it, liked it, and scrolled down, but it stuck with me because I was like, no, for real.
Real talk. I would not be here
We
if it
have
wasn't
to
for that.
now, as young Christians also, I don't want to say, transition out into that role as well of stepping in that spiritual gap, not just
Yeah.
for ourselves, you know, having our relationship with God for ourselves,
Definitely.
but getting ready to like cover our families
Cover.
and
I like
our
that word.
friends
Mm-hmm.
spiritually
Mm-hmm.
in that way. I thought it was so interesting because it's like, oh my goodness, like we gonna be the church aunties and
Yeah. No, real talk.
we gonna be the ones going up
No.
there and do the intercessory prayer.
Real.
Like,
No, for real. No, for real. I with you. You always hear them talk about like prayer warriors and
Them
church and
prayer
stuff.
warriors,
Where you think they come
that's-
from? That's them now.
they just appear. They are born grown.
No, man. So I think it's important, and I think because young people, we need to really consider, you know, adding prayer and fasting as a part of our spiritual practice. Whether we may implement it personally, you know, half a day, maybe may go a day, maybe may try to go longer, depending. But just try to flex that muscle, and I can guarantee that you're going to see some results from it, right? And it's important that, like we mentioned earlier, it's not just about not eating food. It's choosing to not eat food so that that energy that you would have been using to digest, to look for food, to decide what to eat, you're focusing on God, listening for His voice, and doing His will.
So, in addition to that, then, the question of, is this how you should fast?
Right now, so that bring,
Right?
all of that paint the scenario for us to
So
get
okay,
into the
now
topic
we're not eating.
All right,
We're not eating, and we're praying.
we not eating,
But
and we focus on
There's
God,
this
praying.
chapter that I love in the Bible, and I am gonna read this like fully on there because
No, and you go as you want to read it, Isaiah 58, right?
Isaiah 58.
And
I am a huge, like, you know, human rights advocate or whatever. So
hey, we gonna go there.
this is a chapter that has been coming up a lot recently as we've seen a lot of human rights issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Circling around, and how
Mhm.
as Christians we must relate to this, right? And even just in our everyday life, if we're fasting and praying, you know, there are some things that also need to be in place so that we need to be doing or not doing in order for our prayer and fasting to be effective.
Oh, so, and this is how we got into this subject today, because we were talking about it, talking about the things going on, the ills in society, and we fasting came up, and as me and Tyler were talking, I asked, I say, do you think God really? Let me say this right.
Fix it.
Yeah, is the not eating the thing that makes God smile? When He looks at someone who's fasting, is just the action of not eating the thing that pleases Him, in terms of like, oh, God is sitting on the throne, just smiling, like, look at my child not eating that, you know, nice chickpea
In
sandwich.
Him, I am well
In
pleased.
Him I am well pleased. Is that it, or is there a fast that God is looking for that goes beyond, or in addition to us focusing on Him by not eating? Is there something more? So we're going to read this text, and I think
So-
it's going to add value.
Yes, I'm going to read starting from verse 2. This is the New International Version. And it says, For
NIV.
day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my way. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and have not forsaken the commands of God. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near them. Why have we fasted? They say. Have you not seen it? Have you not seen us fast, God? Like, you know, why have we humbled ourselves and you have not noticed? Yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please. You exploit all your workers. Your fasting. Let me tell you, this verse 4, I wanted to get up and run around the room because go ahead.
No, I was going to say, look, you and again, we talking about fasting. Look how brazen they is. God, you ain't see we ain't eat all day?
Exactly. Have we not humbled ourselves enough?
Like, I mean, right, God, come on, nah. I passed up that bowl of cornflakes this morning for you.
You didn't see
And
it?
you ain't see that? Like, the brazen, right? But man, go on. Look.
And so this verse 4, your fasting ends in quarreling and strife and in striking each other with wicked fists.
Mercy.
You know, sometimes we get together and we're like, okay, we're going to, as a church, pray and fast for this particular thing.
My Lord.
We go into prayer and fasting.
My
And we
Lord.
come out of that and go into the whatever.
My Lord.
And it ends in quarreling and strife. So therefore,
Mercy.
null and void immediately. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high.
My Lord.
Is this the kind of fast that I have chosen?
That's where we got the topic for today.
Yes. Only a day for people to humble themselves? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast?
Mercy.
Is that a day acceptable to the Lord? And he said, this is not the kind of fasting I have chosen.
No, he's going to tell you the kind of fasting that this is the kind of fasting that we're going to go on that God smiles at. This is what makes God well pleased. Not in just the not eating the food if you're going to still carry on bad. This is it now. So listen up, don't miss it.
To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke.
My Lord.
Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them?
Yes.
And to not turn away from your own flesh and
people.
blood?
And I would dare say, spiritually applying that, it don't even have to be a family,
your
right?
brothers and
your
sisters
brothers
in
and sisters
Christ.
in Christ.
Then, so when you do all these things,
All of them
now,
things.
right? When you do all of these things in your life and during your fast, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord. Then you will answer.
You see all these then?
Then. These are prerequisites.
Right.
Right. Then you will cry for help, and He will say, "Here I am." If you do away with the yoke of oppression, and again, this topic of breaking bonds and the oppression is really the main thing here. If you do away with the pointing finger and malicious talk.
I had the radio. I would say,
if you spend yourselves
be a little bit more quiet
on behalf of the hungry, if you satisfy the needs of the oppressed again, then your light will rise in the darkness. And your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden. And this goes on. This goes on to your people will
all of the
build and
things.
raise up like all of these stuff.
Repairer of the breach, the broken walls, restorer of streets with desolate. This is what God...
See, because they usually skip straight to verse 13.
Yeah. Verse 13 is very familiar to some of the Adventists.
People. But I love these verses.
Yes. Verse 14 goes on. Then again, you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob. So, is this the fast God has chosen just when you're going to pick a day to say you just not going to eat for 6 hours and you still live in any kind of way? You still live in your regular life. You still being malicious and backbiting and thinking your evil thoughts and being miserable and complaining and pointing fingers and walking past people when you have opportunity to help. Is that really a fast that God looks for?
And again, so many of God's blessings and His promises, while they're free for all, really point to lifestyle and living out a life that is reminiscent of Him and His character. Because when you talk about, and bringing it back to modern day, being a light to like marginalized communities, to immigrants, to those who may be less fortunate than we are, these are the least of these.
Yes, that's it. That's
the
it.
least of these, and in our goings and comings, we must not forget them.
And I would want to just press it further to say that the least of these is anyone who isn't in the position like you are. So you don't got to think about going to a foreign country, and because you may never get there. But there could be people literally around you, people in your church, people in your family, people in your community who could be beneficiaries of these things that's listed here. And with the fasting of not eating and focusing on God and using that energy, these are practical things you could be using that energy for. Since you're not eating, you could give the food you had to somebody who need food. since you not eating and your body is freed up from, you have more energy from not trying to digest everything, you could use the energy to go and help somebody, right? God, there's benefits from it. And when we talk about praying for, like, we look around society, crime going up crazy, these broken families around, like all these social injustices, this. Oh, you go something, but I can let you go there. This is something here, and I believe this is something here that the church could really take a forward step in starting to make a change or impact rather in the society when we fast like this.
Listen, and this right here, I feel like people outside of the Christian faith, if we took fasting with this approach, it wouldn't seem like such a jokey concept in the face of national crisis and issues. Because if we just go in there to keep ourselves from food and go pray in the church, all us in the church praying.
No one see, no one
now
know.
The power of prayer is there, absolutely.
No, for sure.
But when you combine that with things like these
practical
feeding the hungry, breaking the yokes of the oppressed, not quarreling, not being violent.
Coming together, uniting.
Then this becomes constructive
forgiving.
And actionable, especially for social issues.
Yes, oh man.
Especially for social issues. And we know, listen, there's nothing that prayer can't do.
But
for
sure.
Also, faith without works it's very dead.
No life, no power.
And when we look at our community and crime, and we know that factors that lead to that are not just, these people just love to kill. There's also poverty, lack of education, lack of community, things that we can actually, in some small way, get some traction on if we all work together. Then again, this type of prayer and fasting becomes actionable.
Definitely. And it becomes, it like you said, it has more meaningful application to those who even outside of the church. Because then now they can buy into this. They'll, when they hear about people fasting, it can turn from more than just, that's just a spiritual practice that the churches do as a religious thing, but don't really have no real meaning to someone who's outside of that circle.
Right.
But to see, this church is in prayer and fasting, or this person is in prayer and fasting, but then you see them actively being kind, actively trying to help people, using that time, that extra energy. I think, man, we could really have a difference in our society when we look at it this way.
This is a great conversation.
I want to challenge the listener. Why don't you try to implement prayer and fasting this way, this week? And I can guarantee you'll see a difference.
Yes. Amen. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to us today here on Young and Trending on Word SBC 88. Word SBC 88. I was right.
FM. That's right.
Where we answer, be bold, be true, and be heard. You can catch us on social media, Instagram and Facebook at SBC Media Network, and also on YouTube at South Bahamas Conference
Leave a comment.
YouTube channel. Yes, also on Rev Channel 988. That's all for today. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Pastor Nasser.
And we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Young and Trending was brought to you by the Bahamas Adventist Book and Nutrition Center, located on Tonic Williams Darling Highway.